Welcome to Tony's Shoe Emporium. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to discuss boots, shoes, and more boots and shoes and things. What we'll do, because I'm traditionally, well, traditionally I'm a boot person because that's what we were all told to do when I was at school growing up. In the days gone by, when I did the Duke of Edinburgh Bronze Award, like nearly 40 years ago now, not quite, I had to use heavy leather boots and they literally killed my feet. I'm even amazed that I completed the bronze Duke of Edinburgh because my blisters had blisters and I was walking slower than a zombie from the sheer pain and agony of it. I then didn't do any walking for many years, and then early 2000, those that know the story of how I started. Anyway, early 2000 I started walking, and of course initially I went, these are obviously skiing boots, but I'm just using them as an example. Initially I went big, heavy, clunky, and to be fair, they were very good. I had the what the bloody hell were they called? Oh fuck. Scarpa. Originally I had the Scarpa SL and I was sized incorrectly. I was sized for 44, and then after wearing Superfeet, which you've heard me mention several times before, I then kind of discovered that I'm not a 44. With Superfeet I'm a 43, and that has helped my fit and such, like, ever since. So get your feet measured properly, maybe check out Superfeet because they do help, they do help a lot. Anyway, after I started walking about, as I say, about 20 years ago, started off with big heavy boots, and I started reading, I got to know Chris Townsend, started reading some of his stuff, and he was using trail shoes, not dissimilar. I think I've got some Dartmoor left in these. Not dissimilar to these Innovates. He was probably using Innovates before me, but I saw that he was using lighter footwear, and and I did make a switch. After reading all the stuff that Chris has written about lightweight footwear, around about 2005, I took the plunge, into trying, lighter footwear. The first thing that I tried was leather trail shoes. And that was a complete failure because I found that when the leather was wet, it got misshaped and just went everywhere and really wasn't very good. Probably, a more modern leather shoe probably will be, better. It wasn't Scarpa or one of those. It was one of the cheaper brands, but I wasn't impressed. Water once in still couldn't get out, in the same way as if water gets in a Gore-Tex boot, it can't get out. So you're still sloshing around in water. Then around about 2005, I was in America, and I found some Vask trail running shoes, which is very similar to the Innovate. So I bought a pair of Vasks, I brought them back here, and then from around about 2005 I was wearing those on day walks, on Dartmoor and Cheddar, and I must admit my mind was at that point completely converted to trail shoes. I think in those very, very early days, I did probably still use boots in the winter. It's so long ago, I honestly can't really remember back then. But around 2010, I read something no, actually I think it was about 2011, 2012. I read something that Colin Ibbotson, who's done a lot of long distance walking back at that time, about using trail shoes in the winter. And his system, which I actually rather like, and if you watch my early videos, winter walking on Dartmoor, it's a system that I used pretty successfully, I have to say. You know, obviously for the boot brigade, you know, maybe close your ears because you're going to run away crying to mummy, screaming in agony and everything. But basically what his system was a liner sock, synthetic, a merino liner sock, and then a waterproof sock over the top. And I actually think that that is still a good system now. And I actually do think that the two liner socks under the waterproof sock, for me, I think is essential. Because when I was down on Dartmoor on my last trip and it was quite cold, I wore the waterproof socks only occasionally and my feet were quite cool. But when I wear the extra two liner socks underneath, which of course is very, very thin, but it just gives you that little bit extra insulation, then that helps a lot. If the sock leaks, it doesn't really matter. You know, because it keeps the wind out anyway, and just keep walking. This type of system, you know, isn't for your day walker where you're sitting around. It isn't a system for if you're with your pals in camp, you pitch your tents, you know, it's cold and you're standing around outside. No. You know, you can't do it like that. You know, you'll get very cold, very uncomfortable feet. This system is if you are walking, you get into camp, you take your shoes off, you dry your feet, you put dry camp socks on, and you get into your sleeping bag. And then you get up the next morning, put on your wet socks, and you get cracking. Basically, that's what it's, you know, that's what it's designed for. It's not designed for hanging around. I will admit, over recent years, I have gone slightly more boot-wise in the winter. If you watch one of my other videos on equipment from 2024, you know, I mentioned my old Trango La Sportiva boots, and I mentioned my Gore-Tex Innovate boots, which I'm just going to use for local walking now. I think I'm going to, for winter, use my new La Sportiva Trango boots, which I treated myself to, or my Equilibrium La Sportiva boots, which is a bit of a chunkier, heavier version than those. But we'll kind of come on to that in a minute. What I really like with a trail shoe, and some people will sort of say, well, why is he putting you know, a Superfeet foot, you know, into a trail shoe? I do, because it just helps my feet. I can understand where they're coming from, because obviously with a trail shoe you want all that flexibility, but I get plenty of that anyway, so to me it's not a problem. What I like with a trail shoe is they're very, very flexible. With Innovate, particularly the metal tarsal bit, which is the bit just below your toes as it were, is very, very flexible. So it flexes where your foot flexes. The other reason why I like trail shoes more than boots as much as possible is that whilst obviously you get a very good grip on them, your foot is pretty much that shape. So when you're walking, your foot is a plank of wood. What I like with these is because there's so much flexibility to them, your foot and shoe to a degree can mold to what you're walking on. You know, so that helps a lot. So you kind of get a feel for the terrain under you. Another little tip that I'll just add in here is, if you're walking on like really rough ground and there are stones and rocks and it's a bit awkward and iffy, rather than just the front or the very back of your foot catching an outcrop of rock, try and get your shoe to land somewhere in this point here. And then if it does slip marginally, you've still got all the grip this side and all the grip there. Also, because this is where most of your weight and fulcrum is, it gives you a better balance on those iffy bits of, jutting out stones, and you can get a real good grip and feel for where they are. It's the same on the boot as well. If you are on outy, croppy, sticky outy bits, try and get your foot there, not on the toe, because then you're more likely to slip off or too far back and you could slip forward. Whereas if you catch it in the middle, then you've got more grip that way or more grip that way to catch it. So, but yeah, what I do like with these is my foot can mold to the terrain, and that's much more comforting, because because our feet are designed to do this moving around business. And with a lightweight trail shoe, you can do that to a very large degree. Some maybe more than this, obviously the 5 fingers and things like that, but then you feel every single stone under your foot. And in fact, Innovate made a 150 or 150. I've got a video on that from donkeys years ago as well, and in that one you could literally twist it that way, you could fold it that way. It was ridiculously light and flexible, but you could feel every single stone under your foot. So, and there was almost no cushioning at all. At least on these, even though it's a 0 drop, there is cushioning under here. It's not a barefoot shoe, but it's the next thing to it. And for me, it's very comfortable. In the hills, walking, I will only use a 0 drop shoe. My ankles just can't take a trail shoe with anything higher than 0. Although, having said that, this pair here that I got from my friend, which is a wide, and I mentioned this in one of my recent videos as to why I used a wide, basically just for that sock system to have more room in it. That is actually a 4mm drop, but I think I'll get away with 4mm. But generally for hiking, camping, backpacking, I will only use a 0 drop, because I want to be as close to the ground as possible. My philosophy on that one is, the higher the ankle, the more the fulcrum effect is for twisting or turning an ankle. And I've turned my ankle too many times when I've been wearing a shoe which has more of a heel. I want my foot to be as close to the ground as possible. And when I've been using these 0 drop, very low to the ground shoes, I often occasionally will feel my foot slip this way or that, and every time it happens, thank God I'm wearing a shoe that's low to the ground, because I just know that if I was wearing a shoe with a more substantial heel, and plenty of other shoes for running and hiking will have a more substantial heel in them, I would turn my ankle, and I'd be that would be it. It's happened too many times now that I just know I need to be close to the ground. That's one of the reasons why I like Innovate, because they're very low to ground, 0 drop. The grip on them, it's got more grip than I will ever have bottle. I'm quite, when the terrain is a bit iffy or damp or something like that, I'm quite an apprehensive mover. I'm not really, you think after all this time I'd be, you know, but I'm really quite apprehensive on some terrain. I don't know whether it's just age or what it is. But there's some terrain where I don't trust my footing. I think it's a confidence psychological thing. This grip, it's got 10 times more grip and bottle than I will ever have. But yeah, so I really do recommend Innovate. I had to buy them. There's no selling or anything. The only thing with Innovate is they don't last. So, you know, don't buy Innovate thinking you're going to get 2 or 3 years out of them. You know, if you wear them regularly, you'll be lucky to get 6 months or a year out of them, and then you're getting another pair. You know, it is just the name of the game. It's a lightweight shoe. These are the G Grip. These are the Trailfly G270, which basically means that each shoe is around about 270 grams. So, you know, they are very, very lightweight. I have a video, if you go way back into the archives, it's probably like 8 years ago now. But this was a Trail Rock. So the new ones are the Trail Fly, but a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, they did a Trail Rock. This was the 245, 245 grams for a shoe. And the grip is a little bit less grippy than those, but still a very, very good grip. And that was very, very light, very comfortable. As I say, not quite as grippy. I don't use it as much because it's kind of old and they don't make them anymore, and I kind of just want to preserve the bit that's left of it, really. But I use it occasionally. I've been using Innovate for, I don't know, 10 odd years. I've tried other brands, but I've just now given up on other brands of running shoes. I'm just going to stick with Innovate. It's tried for me, tested for me, works. They fall apart after a year. You know, it is what it is. Chuck them out, get another pair. You know, it's just life. What I have found over the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years is I've got a little bit more lazy in my winter walking. And I found that I tend to more likely laze around in camp or something like that. And I must admit, when I was doing that initially with my sock thing, I was then, of course, having to put wet socks on just to wander around camp or just to go and get water or such things like that. And I must admit, that wasn't very nice, you know, for that. So I did get the La Sportiva Trango, and like I said, that's the with the wibbly wobbly bit from my pack video. Make sure that you watch that video. Just put that down there. But what I like about the La Sportiva boots is they're lightweight enough. I don't know exactly how heavy this is. I'll weigh them and stick a weight on, but they're light enough. But because they've got a good, this is the leather version, so this should be very good. This was the synthetic version that I got several years ago, and they still don't leak. It's really just, I just wanted to upgrade them, really. I just wanted the newer ones, but to be fair, these old ones are perfectly good. I mean, the sole on those is still exceptional. I haven't used them a massive amount. Like I said, it's very much a winter boot, and I tend to be quite a lazy winter walker really these days. So they've not had a huge amount of use, but they've had enough, and you know, no leakages or anything. But I did see a very good deal online. I think it was from Snow Leader, an EU company, but it includes customs and everything, and it was a really, really good price, so I couldn't really turn it down. So this is just an upgraded leather version of that. And looks like they've upgraded the tongue a little bit on this one. On the older one, it's this like stretchy stuff here with quite a big opening there. Tony, behave. This one here, I don't know if the opening is as substantial, you know, up there, but it's easy enough to get your boots on. And then obviously you've got a good lacing system. It looks like they've changed the lacing, which is a bit of a shame. On the original one they have 3 cleats here, which I have to say I think is better. On the new one you've got 1 cleat here, a cleat up here, and then this loop thing here, which I don't see the point of that. Is that some sort of arty-farty thing that people do now? I don't understand the point of that. I'd rather have a cleat there. It can't be to save weight or anything. That seems pointless. So I don't understand that. Maybe some people lock the ankle in down here. Just miss that one anyway. Does it? I don't know. Comments below. I'm just interested in what people think about that. But if you don't use it, you know, you've got a bit of material sticking out. I'd rather have a cleat. I don't understand that. But other than that, it looks a very, very nice shoe. I've always gone true to size, apart from those which I sized up because basically a friend just, so he bought them by mistake and then I bought them off him, and I just use those very rarely in the winter with my sock system. But generally speaking, I just always go true to size. I have, with the Innovate, with these, I've just always been 43 and I just never had a problem. Is that because I'm always using Superfeet and it helps keep my foot sized nicely? I don't know, but I've never had to change sizing, and I often hear that people have to get this size for this brand and that size for that brand and a different size, and some people seem to have a hell of a problem, you know, getting the size to fit. Never had that problem. You know, I just go 43 and that's it, it fits. The other thing I've noticed that some people do, they tend to go a size up thinking that the shoe will be wider. I've never really understood that, because if you size up, I don't really see that it's going to become very much wider, you know, maybe marginally, but the wider part is not going to be, surely won't be in the right place anyway for your wide part of the foot. Because if your heel is back here where it should be, locked in place at the back, and then you're getting a wider boot because of your wide feet on a narrow shoe boot, then your toes aren't going to go all the way to the end because you've got a shorter foot. So where your wideness goes is going to be out of line with where it gets. I don't know. Anyway, just a comment I made there. So yeah, so that's obviously boots. And like I said, basically with boots, the reason why I like a boot in the winter is I've just been a bit more lazy walking, and I just want dry feet, keep out of rivers and bogs and such like that. Some people like gaiters. I very rarely use gaiters. Can't really remember the last time I put gaiters on. Obviously with a shoe, you don't need gaiters because you're expecting to get wet anyway. So I've never used gaiters, you know, with a trail shoe. I've got those little light ones that kind of can go around to keep dust and sand and such like out. I've just never used them. It's just not really been a problem. And if you get a stone in there, take your shoe off, you know, get the stone out and put your shoe back on, and that's, you know, that's been fine. The Trango work perfectly well with micro spikes. You'd get micro spikes on there. I got the Equilibrium because I wanted to use gaiters, at some point. Sorry, not gaiters. You know, have the possibility of crampons, and you know, even lightweight crampons, just a bit too much, I think, for the Trango. I think the Trango is not a sturdy enough boot. I think the Equilibrium is like the introduction, but a really nice boot introduction for, you know, for, I keep saying when I say gaiters, you know, for crampons, you know, lightweight, you know, strap on crampons. Obviously I took them to Scotland last year, but we didn't have enough snow, so I haven't used them with crampons yet. I've just got mud still on the bottom of them. I really should care more about my boots. I tend to just come back and chuck them in the cupboard, and then that's it. But yeah, I mean, this is you know, the Equilibrium, you know, having used this for several walks now, I can comfortably recommend this. This, you know, if you want a you know, a boot with a tiny bit of flex in it, but not too much. You don't want a too heavy boot, but not super light either, that can take crampons. Then the Equilibrium, or whatever it's called, you know, is a very good option, you know, to go for. I found it very comfortable in Scotland, and to be fair, when I was going through the brush and you know, and the tussocks and the heather and the heath and all that type of thing, you know, it just didn't bat an eyelid, and it felt comfortable. I mean, obviously it's not as comfortable as a trail shoe, but I have to say, in that environment at that time, it felt very comfortable. You know, I was never once thinking, oh my god, this is a heavy boot, I wish I had something lighter. I actually did enjoy walking it, and even on the road and the track and the trail, where I probably noticed it a little bit more than I would this, you know, it was still comfortable enough for, you know, for a boot. It was still comfortable. But I have to say, my favorite place for using and wearing this is off the track and the trail a little bit, because that's where it really does come into its own, because you don't recognize that you're using it as much as on a track and a trail, where it's still perfectly fine. And you can jog in them. I mean, I don't recommend it. I don't recommend jogging very far. In fact, I don't recommend jogging in them at all. It's just that on one of my trips last year with Chris, I left my phone in the car. We'd walked at least 1 kilometre, and I finally remembered that I'd left my phone in the car. So I had to leave Chris at a point. Luckily, I remembered early in the walk. And then I was able to get back to the car, and I was fast walking, half jogging with this. And yeah, I mean, it wasn't jogging. I mean, I don't do jogging anyway, but I mean, you know, it was comfortable enough, you know, at pace to get back to the car. You know, I like these because they've got, you know, very good, a very aggressive grip on them. The Trango has got pretty aggressive grip. These, you know, you'd lose a finger. You know, you literally lose a finger in the grips at the back on those. They're a very nice boot. Really nice. I really recommend. La Sportiva fits my foot very nicely. I do like La Sportiva. Expensive, as everything is, unfortunately, but comfortable to keep the water out. So, you know, they're very nice. Anyway, that's just a few moments of your time on shoes and boots that I'm currently using. So basically, for 3.5 seasons, 4 seasons, depending on what I'm doing, where I'm going and who it's with, trail runners in between 3 and 4 season, where I maybe just want something, you know, not too heavy, but you know, that is going to stay waterproof, you know, for the entire trip, as long as I don't dunk them. Then I've got the Trangos, and given that I haven't even worn out the other ones yet, I would expect those to last donkey's years. And then if I'm doing something much more substantial in the mountains, where I'm likely to need, you know, crampons, then I've got the Equilibrium. You know, they're all very comfortable. You know, I'd recommend any one of them. So comments below. If you've got this far, you've obviously enjoyed it. Do consider becoming a member of the channel to help. Thank you. Or a patron. But as always, if you have watched the end, then more than anyone else, you've helped the channel the most. Thanks very much indeed. I'll see you in the next one. And to the one person who commented about my wavy arms being very annoying, there you are. There's some more wavy arm action for you. We could do some wavy arm like that as well. Oh, I love a troll. They're so funny. They think they're offensive and horrible and all that. They're amusing beyond the degree of amusement. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks very much for watching.